All right, let's bring in the current finance minister who would likely be stick-handling the budget if the Liberals are re-elected in 3 weeks. Bill Morneau joins us from Toronto. Minister Morneau, why on earth does an economy that your leader boasts about as strong, growing, and generating jobs need so much ongoing fiscal stimulus?
Well, it's nice to talk to you after a while, Don, and it's always good to hear that you haven't changed your tune or your questions. So. No, I mean the question is really one that we've tried to answer by saying that we need to keep investing in Canadians. We know that in a situation where we've made really good progress over the last 4 years in terms of ensuring that we have people entering the workforce, reduction in poverty, and as you know, the lowest unemployment rates we've had in a very long time, we see the continuing need to make sure that we invest in the future. And in particular, that we make sure that we invest in services that Canadians are telling us that they are worried about. Things like health care, students' opportunity to get education, things that matter.
But I'm curious, you swore you'd eliminate the deficit in 4 years, in 2015. Now you see merit in making it 3 times what you said the maximum would be in 2015, even without us facing anything close to a recession. What is the spending imperative that's driving your philosophy in 2019?
Well, we start with the frame of our economy and where our fiscal position is. I mean, We've got, as you know, a very strong fiscal position. It's significantly better than almost all other G7 countries. It's only us and Germany that are in a good position from a AAA credit rating standpoint. We have the lowest level of debt as a function of our economy, and we're continuing to do what we said we wanted to do, Don, which is to reduce that over time. So we're in a position where we can afford to make the kind of investments that help people with their quality of life. And we know we can do that while we are, ensuring that the economy continues to be strong. So we see the opportunity to continue the successful strategy we've had over the last 4 years.
I'm curious what you're thinking of, though, when you look forward and there's an awful, not a complete consensus, but an awful lot of opinion that says a recession is going to hit in the next 4 years. I mean, how is your spending plan bulletproof from that? Will the debt to GDP ratio always go down in your mandate, or could it go up if circumstances change in our economy?
I obviously can't predict the future with any level of certainty. What we can do is we can be prudent in the face of different outcomes. That's what we're trying to do. We're recognizing that investing in Canadians and getting the services that people require will allow us to keep people working and keep people optimistic. That's positive, especially when, as you say, there's challenges outside our borders. So, what we're seeing around the world is that other countries are having challenges because of trading issues. They are thinking about how they can put more fiscal stimulus into their economies, whether it's in Europe or even most recently in Australia. Obviously, the United States has a huge amount of fiscal stimulus. We've been much more prudent. So our deficit as a function of the economy, our debt as a function of the economy is much smaller, but we see the ability for us to continue to make those investments. And there's a choice here. We've said that we want to deal with the affordability challenge for Canadians at the same time as we invest in the kinds of services they want. And what the Conservatives are saying is that they've got a tax plan. It's helping some of the wealthiest, but it's also one that it assumes that they're going to be making cuts because they're saying they're going to balance the budget, which means they're going to be making cuts on the back of Canadians.
What do you say to people, kids these days, that you say, look, we're going to borrow money or run deficits that goes on the debt that's going to be passed on to you in the future, even though times are pretty good right now? What's your message to them? When are you going to tell them we are in a balanced situation, which is how you should be leading your life too?
Well, what we are saying is in managing the economy, we want to make sure that we don't increase that debt as a function of our overall economy. So that is what we're not doing, and we're actually shrinking that over time. That shows that we're able to keep making investments, do the things that for those kids you're talking about are important. We're talking about raising student grants so that people can have access to post-secondary education. And we're able to do that while we reduce the debt as a function of the economy. So it is balancing the need for growth with the need for investments, and we think we're doing that in a way that's that's prudent. And Don, I mean, we do have a 4-year record of making the kinds of investments in Canadian families that have turned into real success. I mean, when we see the lowest unemployment rates in my generation, when we see the highest workforce participation rate since we've been collecting statistics, we know that those investments have been working. Now, at a time where people are worried about global trading challenges, it is the time to continue making those investments so people can continue to be confident in their family's future.
Last question. I'm curious, you're well enough known as a face around Toronto. Does anyone ever stop you on the street and say, I'm concerned about the deficit, I think we should live within our means, or do you never hear that?
Well, people stop me for a myriad of reasons on the street. That is not one of the things that it would typically be the question. I get a lot of people questioning me about what we're going to do in the face of the cuts that the Doug Ford government has made. That is a very common refrain. And what I've said to people is that we're going to continue to make investments. We've said we're going to make investments in healthcare. We've said we're going to support seniors, because we know that that's what people are thinking about.
I thought we'd get through a whole interview with you without Doug Ford coming up, but it didn't quite happen. Bill Morneau, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Great to be on your show, Don. Take care.